Thank you, everybody, for joining today. My name is Jeremy Laduque, and I head up partnerships here at HawkSearch. And I am super excited. We've had this webinar on the books for quite some time, and it's going to be great. So let's jump right in. I want to get right to the content. I know we promised you 30 minutes, and we're going to try to stick to that. And so we are talking about AI. We've got a really powerful panel today because we have Jason Nyhus with a platform. So we've got the platform piece of this. We've got Amandeep with Cronix, which is a systems integrator. So we've got the integration and implementation piece of this. And we've got Jonathan Meyer, who's our senior solutions engineer here at HawkSearch. So we've got a point solution, right, with a powerful AI-powered search platform like HawkSearch, which is a very hot topic. So we're going to attack how we're addressing AI and how that's impacting and being adopted by B2B companies from each of those perspectives. So it's going to be great. So really quickly, guys, Jonathan, you're at the top. Just give a real quick intro and then what it does.
Yeah, so my name is Jonathan Meyer. I'm one of the senior solutions engineers for the Bridgeline team. I primarily work with the HawkSearch tool. I've been working with the HawkSearch tool for over a decade now, been in the search space for even longer than that, working with other site search solutions. So I have lots of experience in this environment and always happy to hop on these webinars and really looking forward to the conversation today.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan. Jason, you're next.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you to our friends at HawkSearch. Jonathan, you're a tough act to follow. You've got a voice for radio. It's
a face for it too, is what I always say as well.
Wow, fair enough. No, Jason Nyhus, general manager here at Shopware, been in e-commerce my whole career, 25 years. Thrilled to be on this call, thrilled to be talking about AI and B2B, and it's just an exciting moment for all of us. So thrilled to be part of it.
All right, Aman.
Yeah, Amandeep Singh, founder of Cronix. So I'm definitely looking forward to discuss here. I think it's great to be in this panel. So yeah, looking forward to discuss what's happening in the e-commerce industry. And yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to touch on, I just mentioned there's going to be a common thread here, which is AI, right? The online purchasing experience. How are companies adopting this? What are the innovations? So that's the theme as we jump into this. I'm just going to show one slide here to point out. I was showing these guys that really, I mean, this is an interesting graph here from Gartner that shows what a digital tech stack looks like. And at the top, you've got your commerce platform, and you actually have search in there as what Gartner is calling a core recommendation to your tech stack, right? So you've got all of that right here, right, with this panel. So I'm going to start firing off some questions to these guys, and these guys are going to jump in. And Jason, I'm going to start with you. So let's jump in. Let's go deep into B2B here. So there's a lot of B2B companies who are really, this is a big question. We all go to a lot of conferences, right? And we hear this all the time that a lot of B2B companies rely on their sales reps, right? And their sales reps are basically supporting the buying journey, right? Which means they're directly working with the buyers, right? But how is Shopware working with B2B companies to support that, given that that's a major transition that a lot of B2B companies have to go through? What are you guys seeing and how are you supporting that?
Yeah, great. Thank you, Jeremy. Well, first of all, one of the things I think is most important is to recognize where we're at in the world. And in B2B companies are really experiencing a tremendous amount of headwinds. Okay, so you think about some of the tariff wars that have happened. This is not a political statement. This is the statement of where we're at. But they're dealing with the trade wars. They've dealt with inflation. They've dealt with labor shortages. They've dealt with a whole bunch of really things that are challenging on the business. And so what's really exciting about this moment with AI is a potential release valve for how these companies can really get back to kind of growth and being more efficient and really weathering some of these storms that we've been facing. And so here at Shopware, we take B2B commerce is 65, 70% of our business. It's the fastest growing part of our business. And we support about 30,000 different merchants across almost every vertical. And so we think that the role of AI is really to help reduce the cost of commerce and reduce the cost of serving your customers. And one of the ways to do that, and I love, Jeremy, that you started with the sales rep conversation. Most 95, 98, 99% of companies in B2B's world, their revenue chain happens through sales reps. Okay, that is how they go to market. It is how they get their products in the world. And so when you think about B2B and e-commerce, the first thing that Shopware thinks about is how do we make these reps more efficient? How do we take the world that they live in and take tasks that, generally speaking, eat up their very valuable time and automate them? And so we talk about things like utilizing our rules and flow building engine to automate a lot of those processes, or our digital sales room for them to see more reps, or leaning on AI to do more recommending of products, because in B2B, there is a right answer on what product they should buy, as opposed to B2C, which is romance the full catalog and get them to an end answer. So there's a whole bunch of ways that B2B companies need different tools and services to make their reps more productive. And that's kind of where the conversation starts here with Shopware.
That's interesting. I'm glad you brought that up, the fact that there are headwinds and that commerce, it's a great way to put it, that, commerce really needs to be looked at as a way to, not only improve, but make the commerce journey more affordable for B2B. So Aman, let me turn to you and ask, as an implementation partner, you are right there on the front line with a B2B company with these challenges. Let's layer in the piece of AI. Where are you seeing AI make the biggest impact from a practical standpoint? I love, I went to a conference called Applied AI. I like that because we're not talking theory here, and I know you're, like I said, on the front line. So where are you actually practically seeing it applied?
Yeah, I think it's definitely coming into a lot of different areas. So I will mention, as Jason was mentioning here, like a sales side of the sales teams, right? So currently now the people are using AI for those kind of scenarios as well, like a data enrichment, data scraping, putting into the one of the example that actually we were working with a client. So the example they gave us, they were facing some of the dropouts issues, so many back and forth with the leads. So what we implemented is let's say someone has actually submitted a form, right? So now if it is a typical sales time and then, the customer support team is not available, the sales team is not available, and the form will, then you will be contacting that person next day. Right. But if you have the agent, which is the AI automated agent, what did happen is, so someone submitted an interest form and now an AI agent can call it, try to qualify that lead a little bit better, try to gather some of the requirements so that, whom to figure out, whom to connect later on or when to connect later on. So that means I submitted a form and right away there's an AI agent is calling that particular person and then, gathering a bit more requirements kind of thing. And now you will have a bit more lead qualification. Otherwise, when the next day person comes up, you will lose that. You have to figure out the scheduling and all the stuff happens, right? So that's one practical application that we recently implemented. Another one is definitely, I think in AI now the semantic search is a very big deal. Like for example, how it's not just the keyword matching anymore. I think you people are typing the natural language in a semantically, so then you are getting the results, appropriate result accordingly as well. So I think that is a pretty happening. We see that nowadays everyone wants that kind of a search for sure. So yeah, the AI search enabled search is a pretty great. We haven't implemented that one, but we are still in a working progress at the moment. So it's a work in progress. So basically people are using AI, not a hallucination kind of a scenario, but more like for market research as well. Okay. So for example, let's say you have you mentioned about the Gartner study at the moment. So let's say you have research from these different insight companies, and then you're combining those things, you're putting into the RAG, and then you are basically using the web search from either Perplexity or some other tools, and then you're combining those together. And let's say you want to project, you're figuring out your product projection, see what is the scale of this particular type of the product in this country or in this region in next 5 years. So you are getting, AI is not just about, what is the generative AI, but it is also about how you can now, the data extraction is way easier, like how you're manipulating the data, how you're capturing the data, and then, shaping in a different way as well. So that's something we are actually in a process of implementing as well. So that's pretty interesting how these behind the scene things work. So, but yeah, in general, to recap, so the customer support and sales, the AI agents are actually helping people now. The product recommendation, AI-based search is, I think, now become a norm now. I think it's a critical functionality, especially with the B2B. You have 200,000 products. You cannot just go to each and every pagination and everything. Most people, AI search is a very essential feature for B2B, right? So that's the biggest thing. And then, the product recommendation, we are just actually in a process of implementing the personalization, the recommendation feature for another client as well. So yeah, and then, I just give an example that the product that we're developing to handle the projection for particular product types and this and that. But yeah, there are definitely a lot of use cases happening, but these are the ones that we are currently implementing or implemented.
Yeah, that's great. That's interesting. Jonathan, I think we have a new phrase. So instead of, unlike B2C, Jason said, where you're romancing the entire catalog.
Yes. I like that. I'm gonna steal that one next time.
Yeah.
No, completely agree. That you hit on a number of kind of great points across the board there. I always happen to walk away from one of these with a new turn of phrase to use.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question. So unlike B2C and B2B, both Aman and Jason have pointed out, like somebody's coming in to buy something specifically, and search has played a huge role in that. And Aman hit on a couple of those, the new things. So just give us a high level of how we've been leveraging AI and introducing AI into the search experience.
Yeah, I think it's been great. You guys, Jason and Aman, you guys have laid such a great little groundwork for me there, because you're all hitting on kind of the classic use cases of what we're seeing in these. Classic is the wrong word. Where the kind of new use cases of what we're seeing in this space. For me, they already kind of feel a classic because we're running into them daily now.
Yeah.
But it's this idea of the complexity of that catalog and how can we really leverage the various pieces, understanding the people who are leveraging the search as well. Jason was talking about the sales rep being really important to that process. That is still a critical component to a lot of B2B organizations, that you're supporting not just the end customer, but the sales reps along the process. So we want to be involved in that part, as well as Aman, like you're talking about, being able to leverage AI to help offload some of that discovery or qualification kind of processes if for an AI, for a B2B buyer.
Yeah.
On the HawkSearch end, what we're really looking to do is really kind of let everyone search the way they want to search. So are we talking, for a sales rep, they're going to want to search a little bit differently than an old time user who is just used to putting in part numbers versus a new rep who got hired on last week, fresh out of college. They're used to being able to ask long tail questions and they might not have the knowledge. So what we're doing on the HawkSearch end here is really leaning into our AI driven search, which is using vector searching to drive that through different embedding models. We're using visual search as well. So for those new younger reps, someone out in the field, they can take a photo of what they're looking for, have the visual search match against that and pull back in the relevant results. The hybrid search that we're talking about that HawkSearch recently rolled out gives us the ability to really look at 3 different components of search. So classic keyword search. So I'm putting in a part number, I'm putting in an attribute-based search, stainless steel 90-degree elbow. Like that's a kind of classic attribute-based search. But also being able to tailor questions for more open-ended natural language processing kind of questions. So what is the right part for this generator? What is, I need something to heat a space of 12,000 square feet, lighting options for a warehouse. Those more open-ended questions where we're seeing real use cases wanting to leverage all of the product data. Aman talked about romance in the catalog. We're romancing the data by using the AI there to kind of help gel everything together. So really from the HawkSearch end, just to kind of summarize there, it's going to be really about that visual search and that hybrid search. Let the visitors search the way they want, if it's through photo, if it's through text, if it's through attributes, if it's through question-based prompts. We want to make sure that we're delivering the right results for whoever is behind that experience there.
Yeah, I'll just mention one thing, the use case Jonathan mentioned. So we were working with the B2B tile company kind of thing, like they're selling tiles and everything, right? So, let's say architects come where they're dealing with the clients and they're, creating the whole design that, okay, in this room you have this kind of tile and all the stuff. So they have PDFs, right? So that client, what they wanted to do is they didn't want people to go and find each and every product. They just wanted to upload a PDF and then, find out the either exact match or maybe, the closed match product kind of stuff. So that's, other use case, which was pretty great. So hopefully we'll be able to push it live soon.
Yeah.
With HawkSearch. Yeah.
Very exciting project. We'll be happy to show that one off here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, there's another theme here which we of course can't get away from, and it's data. I've heard it from each of you. So I know we're working with data in new and interesting ways. Aman and Jason, are you guys talk about data for a little bit, because we can't not talk about data in the B2B space.
Yeah, well, I'll start. I'm sure Amandeep has some smarter things to me, so I don't want to go after him. So one of the big considerations, actually, so we work with thousands of merchants, and when we go in and start talking about the role AI can play at making companies more efficient, the first reaction is one that is really positive. We've got AI inserted into virtually every aspect of how people do e-commerce, and our goal is to eliminate a lot of that blue-collar work being done by white-collar people to make them more efficient to do more strategic things. So things like adding product descriptions, images, categorization, a whole bunch of really cool functions. Like there's 21 different unique functions. So initially they lean in and say, wow, this is going to make my job a lot easier, a lot more efficient. I can do more. The second reaction is the one that's really interesting, which is, wait, what about data privacy? What about, is my information being shared back with these LLMs? Like, how does this whole thing work? Because yes, I want the efficiency, but I don't want my proprietary data and my processes being shared back with the LLM so my smaller competitors can take advantage of them. And so this is a point, I think, when we start talking about data, that we also bring privacy and what is trainable and what are you inheriting from these LLMs versus contributing to it. And just to close out on that point, our point of view is we've got basically an enterprise class relationship with OpenAI. And so you leverage their data, but the data doesn't train on your data until it becomes publicly available on the web, at which any LLM can train on your data. So it keeps what is proprietary until it is public. So that is our approach. But data becomes a big sticking point as to whether they can adopt it and whether they can get it approved internally to use. So I'm not sure that's where you expected to go, Jeremy, but that's kind of what we see quite frequently in the conversation.
Yeah, no, that's perfect.
I agree. But Jason mentioned, there are two aspects to it, right? You don't want your data, especially for enterprise custom. I think it's true for everyone, actually, right? That you don't want that to go publicly shared and everything, especially your financial and all the stuff. So you have to be very careful, what you are actually feeding and how you're feeding it. I think now there's a lot of tools available, especially on the infrastructure side, that you can use the LLM models on the infrastructure without compromising your data integrity. Yeah, these are privacy issues kind of stuff. So yeah, you just have to. And I feel like there's a lot of advancements are going to happen in these kind of stuff where you will get better infrastructure. But I'll give you an example here that what we were working on. So we were working on a marketplace project. So what they had is they were connected let's say 100 vendors. Now B2B manufacturers and all stuff, they have all the specification, but they don't have the data sometimes, the good title tags, all the description and all, and also they're different vendors. Everyone
inconsistent.
Right? Inconsistency in everything, right? So you want to enrich that data. So you can actually either go with the infrastructure based thing, or you can train your local LLM model kind of stuff where you have the specification of the products. You have the data to build at least the basic level information, the title tag, meta description, all those short description kind of stuff, which then can be fed into Google product feeds or the search engines, HawkSearch as well, so that it will improve your site search, it will improve the schema markup on the website, it will improve your Google merchant feed center feed as well. So definitely I think you can use, rather than, it's harder. And you can also basically, based on the type of categories, you can define what kind of rules will be applicable. And then you can verify, you will have the product experts, right? So you will be verifying, okay, is this description accurate enough for this type of a category, this type of product and a thing. So I think that helped a lot, because dealing with 100 vendors and thousands of products, I think if we would have gone to the manual route, it would have taken us months, but we were able to achieve that within less than a month.
That's very impressive, because that is, from the search side, from the site search solution side, that is of course one of the classic mantras is, garbage in, garbage out. And in the B2B space, because of that inconsistency that you were talking about there, Mon, where one vendor might refer to something slightly different than another vendor, and there might be a third vendor who refers to it a third way, and that vendor might not even be consistent in the way that they refer to it as they're sending you that data, or there might be gaps in that data like you're talking about. So being able to plug those gaps on our is huge, because then we have a better data set to work with to drive all the functionality that we're talking about here. And I want to go back to something that Jason also talked about there in terms of the privacy concerns, because that is also a key component of kind of what we see on our end from a number of different angles. So one, the first thing we always run into when we were talking about kind of like that visual search, I want to take a photo and I want to upload that photo to find what I'm looking for. The first question that we get asked a lot is, well, what happens to those photos? Because that could contain personal identifiable information that can, that can be sensitive in things that they're taking photos of. Even though I'm looking for a part from this place, maybe it's in a facility that they don't want photos to be getting out around. So from the HawkSearch end, we are always looking at that as well in terms of what can we do to help maintain that privacy. So for things like visual search, where someone's uploading an image, we don't save that photo. That is basically converted into an embedding. We search against that, and then we're not doing anything else with that. Which has some other interesting knock-on effects for reporting and analytics, but we can always tackle those on other conversations there in terms of how do you report on a thing that is a visual image that you're not saving. But anyways, the other thing that I want to kind of add into that around that kind of conversation is from our end on the AI side, what we see a lot from the generative AI piece of the puzzle, because HawkSearch also really helps out the data, Aman, that you were talking about, being able to pull back in the specifications around a product, the relationships for those things. We're leveraging a lot of that data to drive what we refer to as our smart response, which basically allows us to take the results that are then returned and then layer in some kind of guided selling, some kind of additional information. Let's pull information out of a PDF. Let's pull information out of the product information there. But for us, it is really about the hallucinations. I think everyone kind of sees those in the news or just kind of browsing online like, hey, look at this crazy thing that AI came up with. It's immediately wrong. Anyone with eyes can tell how many A's are in strawberry. It will come up with, oh, there's 7. I can see there's only. So we really focus in on, especially in the B2B space as well, as there's concern about competitive relationships as well. So it's hallucinations and competitive information. Basically being, I don't want you to suggest products that I don't carry or that are not something that I want to prioritize because we have a relationship, or again, you just don't want to send your customers off to someplace else that you don't carry that product. And then, of course, being able to understand the hallucination aspect of it, of how can we cut that down? And for us, it's one answer. We only look at the data that we're getting from the platform or from the integration partner. We're really only looking at that data, meaning that we have kind of built-in guardrails that you can't ask our B2B search directions to Wendy's. It doesn't know that as a concept. It'll say, hey, I can't help you, try a different search. By locking it only to the data that we're getting from the vendors, we kind of reduce those hallucinations. We're also we eliminate basically the idea of it pulling back in suggestions from competitors, other vendors, other websites, because it's only looking at the data that it has access to. And that's also how we help from a lot of that privacy concerns there as well. So we are definitely thinking about all of these same ideas. And it's great to hear that, the whole roundtable here is all kind of in agreement in the kind of key focuses there.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. A lot of guardrails. So I'm hearing a lot of guardrails. So, and obviously that is certainly an important piece of this. All right, no, perfect. So we are coming up on the 30 minutes, but let's keep going. Let's bring up another topic here. So let's talk about, I keep wanting going deeper. So I know everybody will be able to comment on this general theme, but I'll point to Jason here. You talk a lot about just how B2B companies operate today. And one of those characteristics is just very manual workflows. So what role has Shopware played in trying to use AI to automate or streamline, the online purchasing experience, given the fact that B2B kind of expects just, a very manual process and workflow?
Yeah. Well, let's frame it a little differently in the context of agentic commerce. And I think that's the right way to package it up. And one of the really interesting things about AI, it's coming at a time that I talked about where these B2B brands really need this. It's a really big moment. But the other challenge is a lot of these B2B brands, e-commerce or digital is a part of their job. They also have other functions inside of these businesses. These are incredibly smart people who know these businesses really well. And for them to really study and understand the effects of AI and how it can help their business, that's maybe a bridge too far. Not for everybody, but for some. And so this is why leaning on companies like Cronix to come and help be the trail guide as to how you guys can adopt AI, utilizing HawkSearch, a platform like Shopware, to really kind of take your business and evolve it. And so agentic is a perfect example of that. And so agentic commerce, simply said, in my kind of overly simplistic view, is you take functions that normally are something over, I got to get something from this website and something from this other website and then I have to take action on it. I have to do multiple complex things. Agentic commerce really automates a lot of that for you. And so Shopware is a market leader in agentic commerce. We've got an agentic commerce association we've launched, and it's a really big deal. And the example that I always give, we've got about 30 different agentic commerce use cases, but the one that resonates the most in B2B is a price watch agent. And what it essentially does is you go and you look at your competitive websites who you compete with, and it says, take a look at these SKUs on these sites. Tell me how their prices change at whatever frequency I want, ingest it into the commerce platform. And then we decide, do you want to automatically adjust the prices up or down? Do you want to leave them where they are? Do you want manual intervention? But that agentic use case automates what used to take a lot of human middleware. And so it's this example of how AI can really help make companies more efficient and help them compete on the basis of which they want: price, service, selection, whatever that might be. So that's one example that I would point to. And I stole 3 of the 5 minutes we had left.
But there are good use cases of those minutes there.
This is a perfect use case. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Aman, what's the appetite?
I'll steal a minute there.
Go
Sorry, go ahead, Aman.
No, go
I was
ahead,
just going to say real quick, we agree from our end, from an agentic perspective, we're seeing very similar use cases of, watch certain searches that are performing poorly, give me suggestions for ways to improve those with other synonyms or boosting and bearing and merchandising efforts. We are really deep into that process as well. And we're very excited for our next release here, which is coming up very shortly, is going to have the kind of the workbench around those experiences where visitors can start to, where our customers can start to tailor those kinds of hey, here's some of the agentic processes that I want to leverage within HawkSearch. But Aman, I don't want to take all the time here. I'll definitely let you add some color here as well around the agentic conversation.
Yeah, I mean, for the example of how Jason gave us, what we implemented was basically we had different smaller agents. Like, for example, let's say how we are processing the data, then converting into the JSON, then converting into like the visual form kind of stuff for reporting purposes and everything. So yeah, I think, yeah, basically, there are definitely different use cases depending upon like, are you trying to improve your reporting? Are you trying to improve your operations? Are you trying to improve your productivity of your team? So yeah, I think depending upon what kind of a use case it is, there's definitely, I think, a lot of improvements are happening, advancements are happening. So this is great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, I think this is a great time. We promised everybody 30 minutes. Let's stick to that. We're right there. So
How often does that happen?
Yeah, and say thank you guys. I thought this was great. I think we went deep. I think we came up with some really tangible stuff, which I think that's what people want to hear, is the real conversation about how is this stuff actually working and how are companies actually adopting this. So this was awesome. So thank you, each of you, for joining today. If you're joining us and you want to throw some questions in there, I'll make sure they get routed to the appropriate person, and we'll get those back to you. And I would also look to each of our websites, because I know we're all active with conferences and webinars and everything, and I'm sure that we'll all get together again soon too. So thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
You do.
Yeah, have a great day, everybody. Bye.
Bye.